Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 8 o'clock spot live here on the Gryd Network's YouTube channel and on our Twitter account. We're very excited to be with you. I am Bryson Carver, your host / judge / moderator of this show. It is episode 25, and it is our episode after what was an awesome Super Bowl. 25-22, Kansas City goes back-to-back. I know we had a lot of predictions from guys here on this show, on this network. Excited to hear everybody's thoughts on the game. First of all, the host of the Boston Sports Summit. He has taken the title away from our guy, Devin Nettles. Shout out to Devin as Mr. Runner-Up. It is Tim Barnard looking for his very first win on the 8 o'clock spot. Tim, how you doing, my man?
You know what? I could be better, especially because, with Kansas City winning, it just gives people this bias against Mahomes or for Mahomes, and it's driving me up a freaking wall because, let's face it, I love my dynasty. And I want to bask in the dynasty before we get to the new one. So,
yeah, it's been a quick handoff and transition. Like, okay, here's New England's 20 years, and now Kansas City's. It's been the quickest turn for a dynasty we've ever seen, maybe in the history of the NFL. So we'll see how it continues. Thanks for coming on, Tim. EJ Savage, Boys in the Zone, live here on the Gryd Network. He's looking for his very first win on the 8 o'clock spot. EJ, how you doing, my man?
Doing good, guys. What's up? I have to sit here in this. I'm in Kansas, so I have to sit and hear all the Chiefs fans yelling and raving. I'm just waiting for my time as a Cowboys fan, but excited to talk nonetheless.
Very excited to have you on for sure, no doubt about it. Listen, one day, I don't know when, one day the Cowboys will break through. I can't.
That's what I like to hear.
Next year, one day it's going to happen. Alfred Parsor Jr., man, who's not like the Dallas Cowboys, but is a huge fan of the New York Jets. Alfred Parsor Jr. Almost won last week, looking for another victory this week. He's in the top 5 in our standings. Alfred, how you doing, my man?
Good. I just want to remind everybody that I said 1 week ago on this program, you cannot beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I said it here, folks. And I was looked at by some people like, oh, that's pretty confident, but Vegas can't fool me.
And it happened in Vegas, which makes it all the more poetic. So there you go. Alfred calling it once again. Brady Mahomes can't bet against anybody. And finally, here at the last second, a man who was just down in the dumps about this year's Super Bowl. Oh, I can't stand it. Chiefs-Niners ends up being the most watched telecast in the history of this great country. Mike Guido, how you doing, my man? Our points leader, by the way.
Yeah, it was a great game. I can't deny that. It was an absolutely fantastic game. I had no doubt that it would be a fantastic game. I thought the storylines might have been a little dull, and I still think they are. But still, a very, very good and entertaining Super Bowl. No surprise that it was the highest rated ever.
There you go. No question about it. Looking forward to hearing everybody's thoughts. It looks like we already got a few comments up in here. Our guy, Patrick Brown at the Grid. What's up, fellas? Have a great show. Super Bowl recap articles available on the webpage as well. Yes, go check out Patrick's stuff on the Grid. Jay Lewis in the comments. Mahomes stamped his ticket to the GOAT combo. We're already going there. We'll see what everybody thinks about that. But let's go to our leaderboard, see what we got. Our updated leaderboard thus far. Dalton Brown has moved into second place after his win last week. Mike Guido still in first. Dalton is followed by Barry, Alfred, Devin, John Rivera, Dylan, Adam, Ryan, Anthony. There's Tim, AJ, Eric, and EJ Savage, Boys of the Zone, looking to move up in the standings. Let's look at our first round rules. It's quite simple, folks. A great take gives you 200 points. A good take gives you 100 points. An okay take gives you 50. And a bad take, you come home empty-handed with 0 points. And there's been a lot of stories from the Super Bowl, but obviously the Kansas City Chiefs going back-to-back, becoming the first team to go back-to-back since the New England Patriots did so in 2003 and in 2004. Mahomes wins his 3rd Super Bowl title, 3rd Super Bowl MVP. He's now 3-1 in Super Bowls. By the way, has come back from 10+ in all of them. And by the way, has 2 regular season MVPs, to be arguably the best start to a career we've ever seen in the National Football League. So I will ask you, Tim, after this win, after Mahomes played, now that his resume has been updated in a very positive way, where does Mahomes rank all time among quarterbacks in your book?
So again, I think the biggest problem with Mahomes in the conversation is the recency bias. Everyone wants to live in the greatest of all time, right? And so for me, he ranks 4th all time behind obviously Brady, Montana, and Manning. And the reason obviously for Brady is, 7 rings. The fact that he has just been clutch time after time. Again, if you want to talk about Brady as a game manager in Super Bowl 38, right, where he's the quintessential game manager, he went 32 of 48, 67%, 354 yards, 3 TDs with a 100.5 rating against the Carolina Panthers to win his 2nd. And so for me, Brady is just far and beyond number one. Then it's Montana, due to the fact that if I'm going to stay consistent, when Brady won 3, yes, there was conversations about Brady Montana, but I would hope a lot of New England fans at that time were saying, listen, let Brady get his 4th, and then he can be on par with Montana or better, because there was a Bleacher Report article in 2011 that's circling Twitter right now saying 10 reasons he'll never be comparable to Montana, meaning Brady, which was written in 2011. So if I want to stay consistent, Mahomes is not better than Montana and not better than Brady. The only reason why I have Peyton Manning ranked in front of Mahomes is because he's played an entire career. As you said, Bryson, this is probably the best start to a career that anyone's ever had. So give this man a career, and then we can have the conversation. Another tidbit that I found on Twitter was that with all the stats that Mahomes putting up right now, that
10 seconds, Tim.
If he wanted to be better, he has to be better in his 30s than he was in his 20s in order to match Brady's production quality. So,
you know what? You bring up a great point, and that's I've heard a lot of folks talk about, hey, the start to Tom's career. Tom's greatest achievements really came at the end, at his late 30s and his early 40s. Like, he was already great. He had the 3 Super Bowls, won some MVPs, went to a couple more, which he lost against the Giants. But it was never, when at the time Peyton Manning retired in 2015. I think most had Tom above Peyton, but it was a conversation. It was a legit argument. And then Tom reels off obviously 3 more Super Bowls, 2 in New England, 1 in Tampa Bay at that point after 2015. But there's no question it's a valid argument nonetheless. So I will give Tim Barnard a good take. Give him 100 points to start the night. Tim Barnard, 100 points to start the 8 o'clock spot Super Bowl 58 reaction edition. To you, EJ Savage, where does Mahomes rank among all-time quarterbacks in your mind after this win in Super Bowl 58?
I mean, for me, it's a question of, are we talking about the best quarterbacks that ever played or the greatest quarterbacks to ever play? Because if you're talking about the best, I'll bring up some stats. In his first 6 seasons starting, he averages 299 yards a game, 2.3 touchdowns, 0.6 interceptions, comparable to Rodgers, 274.3 yards per game, 2.1 touchdowns, 0.58 interceptions. Brady, 226 yards per game, 1.5 touchdowns per game, 0.8. You talk about Manning, 1.7 touchdowns per game, 258.9 yards per game, 1.1 interceptions. And then we can even go a step further with Dan Marino, 274 yards per game, 2.2 touchdowns per game, and 1.18 interceptions per game. So if we're talking about the best so far with what we've seen in his career thus far, Mahomes is the best. Now, if we're talking about the greatest, we're factoring in the rings. Obviously, you bring up Tom Brady, you bring up the Terry Bradshaws, the Aikmans, of course. But in my mind, I think he's number 2 already, behind only Brady. And that's crazy for me to say, because some people would label me a Mahomes hater because I talk about Kansas City's pass-happy offense. They don't use their running backs in the red zone very much, but still, you cannot negate how good he has been in the National Football League, and against some really solid defensive teams in his division during his career as well. So as far as the best goes, I think that he's going to be up there.
I 1,000% agree with you. I think he's the best we've seen. But that's like you said, that's a whole different conversation. Like, we talk about who's the better basketball player. Like, there are plenty of guys you could have over, say, I don't know, throw out a Tim Duncan. Like, there are guys who are better at basketball than Tim Duncan, but you got the 5 championships, multiple MVPs, great defensive player as well. So, like, those and basketball, football, quarterbacks, it's a different conversation, no question about it. But I think that the
number 2,
being able to. Number 2, right? To be able to differentiate that, there's no doubt that it's a great take, and I'm going to award you for such a take. 200 points for EJ Savage, moving into first place, going into the second round. EJ Savage, great take. To you, Alpha Parsar Jr., where does Mahomes rank all time among quarterbacks after this win on Sunday?
Second all time, only behind Brady. I know it's been said already, but I'm going to say it for different reasons. You got to look at Mahomes. He's been in 4 Super Bowls already in his young career. Out of 4, he won 3. Not only did he win 3, he was the Super Bowl MVP in all 3 that he won. On top of that, especially this year alone, and I said it on this show last week, outside of Travis Kelce, his offense doesn't have much to work with. We saw the game Isaiah Pacheco had in the Super Bowl. Isaiah Pacheco was horrible. It says a lot when you could take a guy like Mecole Hardman and make him one of the heroes of the game. Of course, as a Jets fan, it's sad he started this season on my roster and ends up getting a ring in Kansas City. But compared to other quarterbacks, like I said, we mentioned the Terry Bradshaws, the Joe Montanas, the Troy Aikmans, the Tom Bradys. Mahomes, after losing Tyreek Hill, who he only had for one of those Super Bowl victories, didn't really have much to work with. The guy's been a former MVP, passing yards leader, and again, when it comes to postseason football in this era of the NFL, he's one of the most clutch, if not the most clutch, quarterback. The guy, and as you said, the guy was down 10 points. The 49ers scored the first 10 points of the game. They were up for most of the game, and Mahomes not only gets the game to overtime, but gets a touchdown winning drive to end the game. The guy is just phenomenal. Generational talent, future first ballot Hall of Famer. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is not the last time that we're going to see him hoist the Lombardi Trophy.
I don't think that's exactly a crazy claim at all. And I know folks were talking about, hey, Brady went a decade without winning. Again, in fairness, Brady did get to 2, almost won both. I'd have a hard time seeing us go a full decade without Mahomes hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. Of course, you're going to have team movement. The Chiefs, obviously, Chris Jones is a free agent. Travis Kelce's getting older. You're going to have turnover. We'll see how much longer Andy Reid coaches. And we'll talk about this later in the show, who's going to challenge Kansas City next year, particularly in the AFC, if not the National Football League. What he's done, like you said, again, a 10-point deficit in a game in which, by the way, his team was outplayed for the vast majority of it, and he still is able to make a few plays, keep his composure, and be able to get it done. So Alfred Parsard Jr., I'm going to give you a great take to tie you up with EJ 200 points moving into the second round. Alfred Parsard Jr. with a great take. Finally, to Mike Guido, where does Mahomes rank all time in your book after getting this win in Super Bowl 58?
So, I mean, this is always kind of a difficult question for me just because I have a very contrary opinion to everybody else, and I understand that it's going to cost me points, and I've already kind of accepted that in my mind. But right now, I'm here with Tim right now. I think if I had to rank him right now, gun to my head, I would say 4th. I think it's a little early to be having that conversation a little bit because, listen, I think Patrick Mahomes right now, I think, is the second best quarterback that I've ever seen in my lifetime. I'm not old enough to have seen Joe Montana play. So I think that just given track record and from everybody that I've talked to and everything like that, everything that I've been able to see from an outsider's perspective, I do want to say that Joe Montana, I do give that respect in there. Tom Brady, to me, I think obviously as accomplished as he is, I think we're not even giving Brady enough credit. Brady kind of headed 2 separate dynasties because of the separation between the 3rd and 4th Super Bowl. So I think that there has to be something there. Peyton Manning is the best quarterback I've ever seen. I think he almost revolutionized the way that we play the position. I think the fact that he was able to read defense without even really huddling, I think he was just smarter than every player and every coach that he played. So I give Peyton Manning a huge nod in that conversation. But listen, what Patrick Mahomes has been able to do early on in his career, it just kind of feels like that this is the early makings of another Brady, right? Of another Brady, of another Bill Belichick sort of pairing with him and Andy Reid. So, and again, it's very eerily similar, right? Brady had Gronk, Mahomes has Kelce. It's very similar in a lot of respects. So right now, I would say 4th. I'm excited to see what his career has going forward. I'm sure it's going to be a ton of winning and a lot of agony for the rest of the league. But listen, I would right now rank him 4th. And I think he's, just from a skill perspective, accomplishments aside, he's the 2nd best quarterback I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, from a skill perspective, it's unlike anything we've seen. And the only reason, like, I went into last week assuming, okay, he wins. In my book, he passes Manning. He's just short of Montana because Montana would have more rings, just as many MVPs, 4 known Super Bowls, no interceptions, the whole bit. It was seeing how he won that game, and the fact that he's won all 3 Super Bowls, I believe all 3 Super Bowls. I could be wrong. The first one as an underdog with lesser talent. The thing that really separates him, not from a talent perspective necessarily from Peyton, is Peyton had some clunkers in the playoffs, and Mahomes has had two. I mean, the loss to Tampa Bay and then the loss to Cincinnati a year later. Other than that, he's been absolutely spectacular. Mike Guido, good take. I'm going to tie you up with Tim Barnard Jr. It did not cost you points. I just thought you had a good take all the way around. You don't dig your own grave before you go into a segment. I need confidence. I need bravado. I need our points leader to come into with more swagger than that. Come on, Guido. That's what bothers me more than anything.
It's honesty. You can't knock me for honesty.
Yeah, listen, it's not what cost you points. I'm just gonna say this. Okay, let's see. We got a few more comments before we move on to our second round. Jay Lewis says fourth all time, but climbing. Our guy Barry Grant Jr. Montana never lost. He's 4-0, no interceptions. It's one of the great resumes we've seen. Jay Lewis, Peyton was still considered better even when Brady had 4 rings. King Prell's in the comments. Mahomes is third. Please stop disrespecting Montana. That's a fair case. Again, Montana's playoff record is about as good as it gets, aside from Brady. Brady's got more rings than any organization. That's to me, that might be his greatest claim as being the GOAT. Is my Steelers and New England has 6 and he has 7. It's unbelievable. And of course, Barry's the troll. Patrick Mahomes can't be the GOAT if he sounds like Kermit. Just you can stop right there, Barry. It's just you got to stop hating on Patrick Mahomes' voice. Okay. Let's move on to our second round rules. Everything gets doubled. A great take gives you 400 points. A good take gives you 200. An okay take gives you 100 points. And a bad take, again, 0 points. Let's move to the losing side, the San Francisco 49ers. And a lot of backlash right now for Kyle Shanahan after he is now 0-3 in Super Bowls. To be honest, I think we should count it as 0-2. He was the OC for the Falcons. That loss has pinned more on Dan Quinn than Kyle Shanahan in my mind. But nonetheless, 0-1 as a coordinator in Atlanta in the infamous 28-3 Brady comeback in 2016, 0-2 with both losses to the Kansas City Chiefs. And so, and again, this is the third time that he has blown a double-digit lead. And a lot of his game management, especially not electing to kick the ball to Kansas City to start overtime with the no overtime rules, has come into question over the last 48 hours. So I will start with you, EJ. Is Kyle Shanahan to blame for the 49ers loss on Sunday?
For me, he's very minusculely to blame. I think I would assess maybe 30% blame to him, 70% to the players. I mean, you talk about their first drive. Excellence. They march inside of the 30. Christian McCaffrey uncharacteristically fumbles the ball. You talk about Dre Greenlaw tearing his Achilles. You talk about the second drive of the game. They're driving again. Oh, Trent Williams doesn't get penalties, has a holding penalty, has another penalty, pushes them back further in the chains. You talk about the muffed punt. Where McLeod sees it jump off of his player's back foot. He tries to grab it. That gives the Chiefs an advantage there inside of their own red zone. So, and there's other instances of stupid plays by, the 49ers, but either way, Kyle Shanahan goes in and he goes for it on a fourth down, critical fourth down, gets the points when they should have probably, if it was me, well, maybe not against Mahomes, but either way, you had the chance to kick the field goal, but he's being aggressive, he's going for it. Now, I can critique him about is going away from the run in that third quarter, whether it was, him getting scared about Christian McCaffrey fumbling or not. He's your best playmaker on your offense. You cannot go away from him. And then what you brought up at the top about him, not deferring the kick after he won the toss in overtime, knowing that extra down in your pocket, if the Kansas City Chiefs do go down and score a touchdown, you have that fourth down opportunity. And they marched it all the way down to the 7-yard line, but then they elected to kick the field goal instead of go for the touchdown. So ultimately that was his demise. That's why I say 30%, 70% on the players. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly not blameless. And again, to me, the biggest knock on Shanahan is what you heard from a lot of his players. Kyle Juszczyk, I think chief among them, saying after the game, we didn't know the new overtime rules, whereas you had Kansas City guys saying hey, Coach Reid was going over this every single day during the playoffs. If this happens, this is what we're going to do. And so that's the biggest knock. But I thought in general, the play calling was good through. Him going away from McCaffrey is a legitimate, gripe, especially in that third quarter. But in general, right, he had the trick play. My man, Juwan Jennings, go Vols. Yeah. The touchdown pass to McCaffrey down the red zone. Being aggressive, converting the fourth down. I thought by and large his play calling of the 3 Super Bowls, this was probably his best performance in that regard. But in general, you do certainly have to assess some of the blame to Kyle Shanahan. So EJ, going to give you a good take to get you to 400 points and the lead right now. EJ Savage with a good take. To you, Alfred Parsar Jr., how much blame goes on Kyle Shanahan for this loss?
I'm going to put minimal blame on Kyle Shanahan for several reasons. Number one, he's the coach. He calls the plays. He can't help that special teams fumbled a football on a punt return. He can't help that Christian McCaffrey fumbled, and he definitely. And I'm pointing to this because this was the critical moment in the game. Jake Moody getting blocked on an extra point. If he makes that extra point, I think San Francisco would have won the game because they would have been up by 4 points at that time, and the game wouldn't have gone to overtime because a field goal by Butker would have meant a 1 point loss. So they would have needed a touchdown. The Chiefs would have needed a touchdown at the end of regulation. I can't blame him because if your players don't, no matter what plays you draw up, you can't account that the reigning offensive player of the year is going to fumble. You couldn't count for that special teams mishap. Not knowing the rules, yes, that's on him. But even the officials, because there was some mix-up, weren't even really on par with the rules. The only thing I can blame him for, in overtime, you got to take that ball first. Only because if you score a touchdown, now it forces the other team to have to go get a touchdown. They got a field goal, and that left room for Mahomes to march down the field and get a touchdown and win the game. But you could maybe blame him for 10%, but you can't pin most of the blame on Shanahan because, again, the coach's job is to draw up plays. Like you said, he drew up a hell of a trick play with Jawan Jennings to throw a touchdown, and he caught a touchdown in that Super Bowl. His guys played a great game. Brock Purdy in that game is no longer considered a game manager, at least in my opinion. So he called a great game. It's just his team made one too many mistakes, and they had freak injuries. Dre Greenlaw, the camera didn't even catch it. We had to find out coming back from commercial. He's out of the game, running onto the field celebrating a stop. So,
10 seconds now.
It's things like that you can't blame the coach for injuries and his players fumbling the ball. It just doesn't make sense to me to blame that man for most of the loss.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned the two special teams mistakes. Where the punt goes off the guy's foot, then there's the muff by Ray McLeod. The Chiefs recover, get a touchdown the very next play. The blocked field goal by Moody, which again was not on the holder. The snap was good, hold was good. He just kicked a line drive and
blocked
and a guy
extra
for
point,
Kansas.
you mean?
What's that?
Blocked extra point.
Yeah, block the extra point. Yeah, block the extra point. No question about that. And like you said, again, not knowing the rules, that's got to be, kind of a knock on Kyle Shanahan. But in general, I'm with you. I thought he called a really good game. So Alfred Parcel Jr., I'll give you also a good take to tie you with EJ at 400 points in the lead right now. Mike Guido, how much blame goes on Kyle Shanahan for this 49ers loss? Is Mike with us?
So here's the thing. I really don't. Sorry, can you guys hear me? I'm sorry. I'm doing this from my house. I don't have access to my studio at the moment. But
a little delay.
Okay, here we go. So I would say almost nothing. I think that you really have to look at this game as far as Patrick Mahomes won it and the 49ers didn't necessarily lose it. I think that's almost as simple as it can get. I don't understand the gripe. I'm actually surprised by the answers that are before mine because I was expecting a little bit more blame on Shanahan since that seems to be the consensus among the public. But here's the reality. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, you have to think about it like this. You have Patrick Mahomes standing on the other sideline. We just spent the first 15 minutes of the show talking about how great Patrick Mahomes is and how it seems almost inevitable and everything like that. You then can't say, well, Kyle Shanahan should know better. He should have given Patrick Mahomes the ball first and then have his team play from behind. I don't understand that, right? So I don't think that you can have it both ways. I think him saying, look, I'm a brilliant play caller. I've got more weapons than anybody in the league. I'm just going to take my chances with my offense on the field. I don't have a single problem with that. I'm with EJ a little bit as far as I don't know that I would have taken the ball away from Christian McCaffrey in the third quarter as much as he did. But even then, I mean, listen, this was a very defense-first outing, and it's not like McCaffrey was killing them all game. I mean, McCaffrey only averaged 3.5 yards a carry. And look, the drive that went down into the red zone in overtime was a 13-play drive, and if anything, Spagnuolo outsmarted anybody because Brock Purdy had a 76 or a 77 passer rating against the blitz. He just went after him. So look, Shanahan, I really don't see how there's much blame here. I think Mahomes just won it. And again, this is why I take a little bit away from Mahomes, only because it just seems like, to the points of which Alfred pointed out, it just seems like things go the way of Kansas City.
Yeah, and no question about that. And to your point, and I thought you were going to bring this up when you were talking about that drive. That last play, he had two guys open, Jawan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk coming across the field, where if Chris Jones doesn't come in and blow that thing up, that's a walk-in touchdown for number 15 or for number 11. And so one of those two things could have happened. So in some ways, like you said, Spagnuolo was phenomenal during this game, but in some ways, that's a great player making a great play, and Chris Jones is going to get paid by somebody this offseason. We do know that for a fact. Mike Guido, great take, going to put you in the lead here at 500 points. In general, like you said, the play calling was great throughout. There's, again, the criticisms of Shanahan, whether it be the overtime, whether it be him not giving the ball to McCaffrey, those are, I wouldn't go so far as to say they're nitpick, but they're big. It's the Super Bowl. I get that, but it's not like just in general he looked overwhelmed by the moment, like, say, sorry EJ and sorry Mike McCarthy, that we've seen him in the playoffs multiple times, just looks in over his head. That didn't seem to be the case with Kyle Shanahan. It was just two errors, one more critical than the other, but outside of that, he was I'm so far I'm in consensus with all of you. You'll see what Tim has to say on Kyle Shanahan's performance. So Tim, I'll ask you finally, how much blame goes on Kyle Shanahan for this 49ers loss in the Super Bowl?
So I actually put I don't give him 100%, but I do put a lot more on him than the other three gentlemen to my left here, because first of all, yes, the whole punt going off the guy's leg and then San Francisco trying to scoop it up, which, first of all, bad coaching, because just how many times, if you guys been playing football, how many times fall on the ball? Don't scoop it up, fall on it. But the thing that really got me more than anything was Niners have a 10-3 lead coming out of halftime. Kansas City has the ball. 2 plays into it, Mahomes throws a wild pick. And what does San Francisco do for the next 3 possessions? 3 straight passes, run, pass. That's exactly what they did. All 3 and outs. Again, mix it up a little. I understand, listen, his play calling was better than previous Super Bowls, but mix it up. Again, run on those first downs. Don't always lean on Brock Purdy. Then you want to talk about that final field goal that San Francisco got to go up 19-16. Right before they got that field goal, it was 3rd and 5. And Brock Purdy steps back to pass, and Spagnuolo brings the blitz. How long has Steve Spagnuolo been in the league? Doesn't everybody know what Steve is going to do on big 3rd downs like that? He brings the blitz. And the other issue that I have with that is the fact that Kyle Shanahan's plays take a long time to develop. If you know that he's going to bring the blitz like that, you better have a quick out, somebody in the flat, a quick crosser, maybe, a James White character for to come out of the backfield. Christian McCaffrey, obviously, right? James White character. The best running back probably of this generation. So there was a lot more to the play calling than I think we've talked about on this show tonight. And that's why I believe he deserves a lot more blame, not 100, but a lot more blame than what has been given.
Yeah, it's fair. And to your point about the long developing plays, like that was where in these 3rd and short situations, obviously San Francisco, 2 minutes to go, they get that first down. And listen, Moody was shaky, so who knows if he makes the kick or not. But they're in least a position to run the clock down to maybe to a couple seconds left, and maybe Moody hits the walk-off. But Tom Brady was the master at this, is getting the ball out of his hands quickly. And to the credit of the Patriots coaches for dialing up these quick plays, whether it be to Gronk, whether it be to Edelman, to Amendola, some of those guys, at least later in the Patriots dynasty, and even in Tampa Bay, he loved some of the slot guys. Scotty Miller, Antonio Brown was a key facet for them in 2020. And also too is it's a great point that you make about the lack of run plays. Deebo Samuel didn't get the ball enough. Like that to me was like, it doesn't necessarily just have to be McCaffrey. You can use Deebo in any which way you want to use him. And obviously I don't think he was totally healthy in this game, but nonetheless, maybe
2 catches too.
Yeah, but and he's kind of your safety valve, sort of your security blanket. But Tim Barnard, I'm going to give you a great take to tie you up with Mike at 500 points moving into our 3rd round. I thought your points about the, sort of his, I don't totally agree with you, but I thought you make a great case in terms of just him abandoning the run the way he did. Like if you're going to criticize anything, it's that and the overtime, lack of awareness. And I think you hit the nail on the head in that regard. Let's look at a couple of comments before we move on to the 3rd round. Jay Lewis says the Niners lost the game in the last drive in the final minutes of overtime. No one to blame. Mahomes is inevitable. And Barry Grant Jr., Kyle Shanahan is still that same coordinator against the Patriots. That's fair. I don't put that loss on Shanahan as much as others do, because you are up 28-3. Surely to goodness your defense can get one stop or one turnover, make one play. But again, that's Tom Brady being Tom Brady. But at the same time, coming back from 25 and 17 minutes of game to send it to overtime. Yes, that's greatness by Tom, but my gosh, get one stop. I put that more in Dan Quinn than Shanahan, but that's a whole different discussion for a different show. Moving on to our third round rules, final round with all 4 contestants. Again, the top 2 point getters move on to the final round. A great take gives you 800 points. A good take gives you 400 points. An okay take gives you 200, and a bad take, again, 0 points. So obviously right now you're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs, and they are the dynasty. If there were any doubts about whether or not they were the dynasty of the NFL, those got erased on Sunday night. 3 titles in 5 years with another Super Bowl appearance to boot. We already talked about Mahomes and his greatness. Travis Kelce, one of the greatest, if not the greatest tight end ever. Andy Reid, ascending amongst some of the greatest coaches ever, no doubt about it. And Kansas City is looking for something that has never been done in the history of the National Football League, and that is win 3 consecutive Super Bowl titles. Nobody's ever done it, and so we'll see if they're able to do it. And I'm not necessarily asking if they're going to do it, this next question coming up, but I'll start with you, Alfred. If Kansas City, let's just assume everybody's healthy, everybody comes back, they're ready to go, who's the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs three-peating for the first time in NFL history?
Bold take, and I'm going to go out on a limb, and I feel very strong in what I'm about to say. It may get me hardly any points to no points, but I think nobody in the NFL.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you why. If you look at all the opponents that they had this year, assuming that all the strong teams from this season come back either at even strength or stronger, everybody said, "Oh, Baltimore is big and bad. Baltimore is going to the Super Bowl." I can't tell you how many times people said that the Ravens were going to the Super Bowl. Mahomes looked them right in the face and said, "Ha ha," and beat them. Then you've got the Buffalo Bills, who for some reason just can't seem to show up in the postseason. If you look on the NFC side, and I said this on this show months ago, if there was any NFC team that would have stood a chance to win a Super Bowl, it would have been the 49ers. And they couldn't get the job done. So I don't think there's a threat. And then again, going back to Mahomes and what he has to work with, he's doing this with one of the lowest ranked. This has to be arguably one of the worst receiving cores stats wise amongst any receiving core to ever win a Super Bowl, maybe in NFL history. I mean, it's unfathomable to me how you could have a wide receiving core leading the league in drops. They're nowhere near the tops in yards or touchdowns outside of Kelce. And he managed to bring that team to win, not only win the game, but go to overtime and winning the Super Bowl, coming back down from 10 points when the opposition scored the first 10. It's like Mahomes has no fear. He's just great. And if he comes back and he's healthy, and Kelce comes back and he's healthy, they re-sign Chris Jones and he comes back and the defense is firing on all cylinders again. Not to mention, they're probably going to make an offseason move because there was a report that just came out that says Mahomes wants to take the Brady approach, get his contract restructured so that money can go to retaining other players and getting more players. That's
10 seconds, Al.
That's a formula in and of itself to repeat again. There's no other team in the NFL that's going to stack up to him because we see all these great regular seasons from all these other teams. But in the games that, when it comes down to the games that you must win, Mahomes wins again and again.
He does, and that's that's one key component of why this team was underrated in my estimation all season long, was because of the defense, of the fact they were keeping them in these games. And you'll like this reference, Tim. They reminded me a lot of the 2018 Patriots, where obviously Tom was later in his career, but Gronk was later in his career, just like Kelce. They've got a great coach who specializes on one side of the ball, a great defense, very limited receiving core, but the quarterback's great enough to be able to elevate them to a level that they're probably not capable of reaching with any other quarterback. And so that's the thing we've talked about in this show and on our own individual platforms is, if not now, you get Kansas City. Again, we're assuming they're healthy next year. When the heck are you going to get them? I mean, Buffalo had him at home. Baltimore had him at home. San Francisco had him on the ropes multiple times on Sunday, and it's just somehow, some way, the champs and the dynasty continues to pull through. Alfred thought it was going to cost him points. Great take, Alfred. It just gets you to 1,200 points to put you in a pretty good position. I'm looking at the stats right here. We'll see what Tim and Mike and EJ do to potentially get to the final round. So a great take by Alfred Parsard Jr. To you, Mike, Who's gonna? I have a feeling I could be wrong on this. I think I know your answer. But nonetheless, I'll ask you the question: who is Kansas City's biggest threat to a three-peat next year?
Yeah, no, I mean, I got to give credit to Alfred a little bit because I'm starting to lean in that direction where it just, like I said, it just has that Brady Belichick feel of, all right, well, if you're not beating them now, then when will you ever? It just sort of feels that way. I bet, Bryson Carver, that you thought that I was going to say Buffalo. And as much as I love Buffalo, and as much as I think that they could contend against Patrick Mahomes next year and the Kansas City Chiefs, just because I think as far as overall roster is concerned, how great Josh Allen is, I still think that they're always going to be able to compete. Okay, those games, Patrick Mahomes has had the upper hand. I understand that, but those are always dogfights. They're never easy games for Kansas City, and one of these days it'll topple over in Buffalo's direction. However, I think right now the only hope that the AFC has to this day at this point is the Cincinnati Bengals. That's it. Right now, I think look, we were expecting this year a bigger year out of Cincinnati that we thought, right? Because this was a year where everything was coming together. It was before guys like T. Higgins were hitting free agency. This was a fully constructed roster. The offensive line could have definitely been a little bit better. I think they'll address that heavily in the draft and in free agency going forward into next season, especially after a second year of Joe Burrow getting hurt. But people have to keep this in mind. The only two quarterbacks in the NFL that have beaten Patrick Mahomes in the postseason are Tom Brady and Joe Burrow. That's it. So there's one guy left, right? Tom Brady works for Fox Sports now. Joe Burrow plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to say this. I think there's a bounce back for Cincinnati next year. There's going to be a much bigger improvement to their offensive line going into next season. Their defense has been great as far as getting after the quarterback. They have a great set of linebackers. So right now, I think unless Kansas City really, really improves their receiving core, which led the league in drops, I think that Cincinnati has a decent shot of contesting them for next year.
They could, and obviously you talk about the greatness of Joe Burrow, and this is a guy who has beat Mahomes. The only guy, Brady did beat Mahomes at Arrowhead in 2018, but like you said, only current guy to knock him off in the modern day, in the modern era. And like Baltimore, again, Baltimore's at their peak. Baltimore's at home. Kansas City's at their weakest, and you still couldn't get him. And Kansas City flatly outplayed you from start to finish. And so that's, like you said, Cincinnati, even in their loss, was just a couple plays away. If Burrow doesn't have those a couple turnovers in that game, maybe it goes in a different direction. And obviously, the Chiefs were stronger at that point, but we'll see what happens in that regard. But Mike Guido, good take. I'm going to get you to 900 points here, put you in position to potentially advance to the final round because, listen, Cincinnati it could be the NFL's last hope, but you got to realize, too, Cincinnati's got to go through that brutal division where the worst quarterbacked team, which I would argue is my Steelers, even over Cleveland. I got to be objective here. Even Pittsburgh Steelers, it's Tomlin. It's that great defense. Obviously, Cleveland, great defense. And Baltimore, we know what they bring to the table. So getting out of that division with a healthy Burrow, I think is going to be the main hurdle for them if they do get to play Kansas City, because they almost beat them this year with Jake Browning at quarterback at Arrowhead, late in the season. So we'll see what happens in that regard, but a good take by Mike Guido. To Tim Barnard, who is the biggest threat in your mind to knock off a Kansas City Chiefs team that is looking to three-peat in 2024?
Well, I got two teams. Number one, the most easy one I think to go with is, Mike, you had it, Cincinnati. And I agree with a lot of what you said. And one thing you got to remember is their cap spending. They have the sixth most cap space available to spend this offseason. And reports have come out that they're going to probably franchise tag T. Higgins. And really, the only guy or two guys you could argue that they're going to lose are on the defensive side of the football. And that's DJ Reader and Chidobe Awuzie. I think that's how you say his name. And they still have plenty of room to re-sign him and can go out and improve their team. That team desperately needs more O-line, quality and depth. They've worked on it, but they have the ability to go out and find it. And with this draft class being stocked with offensive tackles, there is a good chance that they could take a tackle early, improve their offensive line, and this team could be that team. Joe Burrow gets healthy and gets back to it. Now, the other team, which I think is going to be a dark horse, is going to be the Chargers. I think the Chargers are a team that has an opportunity because they have a great defense. A lot of great Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, the safety from Micah Fitzpatrick.
Derwin James.
James. Yeah. Yep, you're right. Derwin James. Micah plays for the Steelers. They have a great defense. They have a really good offense and really good quarterback in Justin Herbert. And with what we've known Harbaugh to do with quarterbacks, he took Alex Smith, who was kind of a bum, and brought him to an NFC championship game. That's a massive transition. A guy won a playoff game, so Harbaugh
10 seconds, Tim.
just won the national championship game. So he knows how to perform and get the best out of his quarterbacks. If Herbert can stay healthy and the wide receivers can stay healthy and they improve that area,
right,
I think they could be a nice dark horse, seeing Kansas City twice in the regular season.
They very well could be. And I think, too, is, the Harbaugh component is massive. He's one of the 5 best football coaches. Like, if you had to give just a blind resume, like take any coach, either college football or NFL, but Jim Harbaugh might be your first pick just because of the success. And Jim is the guy who takes over horrible situations. Michigan wasn't a horrible situation, but darn sure wasn't ideal after Brady Hoke left or got fired after 2014. Takes them, develops them into a national powerhouse. I mean, early on was competing with Ohio State, who was way more talented at the time, wins them a national championship. Stanford, even before that, turned them from rubbish into a national power, and then they're back to rubbish now, to use a Barry Grant Jr. term, by the way. And then comes to the 49ers, dead in the water, just irrelevant franchise, 3 straight NFC title games, and almost won a Super Bowl against the Ravens in 2012. So his ability to turn around a franchise, now you pair him with the guy as talented as Herbert, that could be scary for the rest of the league. I'm going to give Tim Barnard a great take to get him to 1,300 points and all but guarantee, if I look at the points, that you will be in the final round. The question is, will you be Mr. Runner-Up or will you be a champion? Only time will tell. It comes down now, though, to EJ Savage. We'll see if he can get like a tie with Alfred, or if it's Alfred moving on to the final round. But EJ... who's the biggest challenger to the Kansas City Chiefs and stopping them from getting back-to-back, 3 straight titles?
Truthfully, I think that you look at Cincinnati, what they've done, and Joe Burrow's the only person to ever beat, I don't know, I think it was Mike that said that, other than Brady, to beat Mahomes. But I think that they're losing too many pieces. Tim brought it up. DJ Reader, Chidobe Awuzie, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Irv Smith. The list goes on. And yes, they have the cap room to sign those guys, but it wasn't good enough this year. You want to talk about Lamar's injury problems. Joe Burrow has injury problems himself. So until he can figure that stuff out, I'm not going with the Cincinnati Bengals. I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I think that you look at, this is a clash of the Cavaliers versus the Golden State Warriors to me. The Cavs could not beat the Warriors year after year after year, and all it took is that 1 year. All it took was we get these other role players in here, and we can finally get over the hump. You add in Kansas City, possibly losing Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed, some other players on that defense that was so good in the playoffs for them and really throughout the season. I think that the Buffalo Bills have the capability of doing this, and losing to the same team over and over and over is going to motivate those players to get better in the offseason. You add in their draft picks, they're going to probably pick up another wide receiver to help Josh Allen. He's Mr. Magic. I mean, you talk about what he can do as a runner, that physically wears down defenses in itself, and he can make every single throw on the field. So as far as my money's bet on the AFC side, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I just think that they have to get over the hurdle eventually, and it starts in the offseason, starts in the draft season, and the more pieces they add, the closer that gap can get, and I think they'll do it.
We'll see, and obviously they've come closer than anybody. There's no question. Outside of San Francisco, they've come closer than anybody. Obviously, everybody remembers the all-time classic in 2021, which Mahomes won in overtime. By the way, fun fact, that game is why we're having this conversation about the overtime rules, because obviously the league went in and changed it. But I think in general, you talk about obviously Buffalo kind of knocking on the door. This year they come close. Allen's not able to make the necessary plays. The kicker misses a kick. Defense can't get a stop in the second half when the Chiefs go berserk in the second half of that football game. So. And then listen, if they do add another receiver to go with Shakir, Gabe Davis is still there. The Stephon Diggs component is one that's kind of up in the air. We'll see if he's able to come back. Dalton Kincaid, James Cook, the pieces are there. And Josh Allen is a phenomenal quarterback. Whether or not this defense can be able to bounce back, because Mahomes has done nothing but carve up that Buffalo Bills defense time and time again. But I know Mike did appreciate that that little plug. But I'm going to give EJ a good take. I'm going to get you to 800 points here. So you are just short of Mike. So that means the final round will feature Tim Barnard and Alfred Parsar Jr. in the final round. So to Mike Guido, to EJ Savage, great performance out of you guys. We'll talk to y'all after our final segment. Shout out to both y'all. All right. It's down to two. It's down to Tim Barnard. And before we get to you two, let's look at the comments real quick. Let's see. Jay Lewis, Kansas City Chiefs are the only team that can stop the Kansas City Chiefs. That's well put, and there might be a lot of truth to that. Barry in the comments, hey, EJ, did Jim Kelly, let's put EJ. Is EJ available right now in the comments? Let's put you back in here real quick, EJ. Hey, EJ, did Jim Kelly get over the hump? Love you, bud. Any response?
No, he didn't, and I'm happy. As a Cowboys fan, I'm happy about that.
There you go. I appreciate EJ coming in for that last little bit. Because listen, if there's gonna be name drop in the comments, which I have no issue with, let's talk to the panelists as much as we can. I want to give them an opportunity to respond. Okay, final round, and this is the winner take all, ladies and gentlemen. It's the great equalizer of this 8:00 spot tournament. The winner gets 10,000 points. The loser comes home empty-handed with 0. It's sort of like a fast money type of deal, like with Family Feud you see on television. So a little bit, I guess the biggest controversy, so to speak, in this game happened during the game. It wasn't halftime show, pregame festivities, none of that. It was the incident in the first half with Travis Kelce getting into the grill and with some physical contact on the side with Andy Reid after Isaiah Pacheco's red zone fumble against the 49ers. At that point, Kelce only had 1 target for 1 catch for 1 yard. In general, just was not able to get going for the vast majority of that first half. Gets going the second half. Reid Reid was the guy impacted by it. Reid didn't seem to take it personally. He got Kelce more involved. Kelce kind of downplayed it. But I'll ask you, Tim, any problems with this exchange between Kelce and Reid?
Yeah, I absolutely have a problem with it because that's a player going at a coach like that. Like, what are we doing? You don't bump the man. I don't care what age he is. I don't care how big of a superstar he is. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's because I grew up, in a certain era, where, again, players were screamed at, yelled at, and you had to just sit there and play or whatever the case may be. But the way players can just get away with this now. I mean, I know A.J. Brown came out and said he would have been kicked out of the league. I think A.J. Brown went a little overboard with that tweet, but I understand what he's talking about. I mean, I'm a fan of a team that benched Malcolm Butler for the entire Super Bowl, except I think 1 special teams play. And to this day, no one knows why he got benched. And they needed him in that game. So something had to have happened between him and Bill. And so when you have a player like Kelce screaming, bumping, practically physically assaulting his head coach, yeah, I got a massive problem with that. And you know what? The funny part was it came after the fumble, which was their lone play in the red zone at the time. And Kelce was pulled out of the game because guess what? The man can't block. He is not a true tight end because he's not a great blocker. And if he was, he would have been in the game. And, who knows if the fumble still would have happened. But, dude, play the game. It's in, like you said, Bryson, it was in the second quarter. It's the first half. There's still a whole half of football to be played. Can we just calm down? I know it's a high stressful game. I know it's the final game of the season. But you know what? An attitude like that needs to be corrected. And I'm sorry, I would have benched him. I know I'm crazy. I know that is asinine, but sometimes maybe at least for the rest of the half. I don't know. A point needed to be made because the fact that they went on and
10
won
seconds.
Now seems like the whole thing was now it's like, oh, haha, yeah, I just did that, blah, 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 where it's totally disingenuous now. Something needs to be done, about that. Not like suspension, but
right.
You know what I mean.
Well, sure, and I think the biggest issue, I don't think this is debatable, is not necessarily the screaming, it's the fact that there was physical contact involved. Like Tom Brady, just almost darn near spitting offensive coordinator's face, just like nose to nose. It was like, I'll say this, and I talked about this yesterday on my show. Had Andy Reid's in his mid-60s, had Andy Reid fallen over, I think that would have broken the sideline. That would have been like, oh my God, the second best player on the team just shoved her. Like that could have been, thank God Reid stayed upright, or that could have been potentially disastrous for the morale of the team. So there's certainly validity to your point. Alfred, did you have any issues with this exchange between Kelce and between Andy Reid?
Travis Kelce is a competitor. He's a guy who wants to win. Again, we're talking about the Super Bowl, folks. It's not like this is week 12 of the regular season. Oh, if we lose this week, we'll just come back next week and play. No, this is the Super Bowl. If we lose this game, we don't win the championship. On top of that, like I said, the guy's a competitor. He's one of the best tight ends, if not the greatest tight end in the league right now. I would have been more concerned if he didn't show any fire at all. And it's not like he went full on Latrell Sprewell and choked PJ Carlissimo out, or like he was Kirk Cousins and hit a man with heart problems in the chest, or like he was Kevin Green and attacked his linebacker coach. It wasn't a physical mauling. It was a little shove. And then look, they win the game, and both of those guys are all smiles afterward. It was a heat of the moment type thing. It's not like it was a full out assault. And again, when they got presented the Lombardi Trophy, Andy Reid probably didn't even remember that happened, or probably put it behind him, because he knows that there was no malicious intent for Kelce to hurt him. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's a I want to win. I'm a competitor. I refuse to lose type of situation, and that's all I took it for. It's not like Travis Kelce has a history of attacking coaches, not that I know of, unless you guys know something that I don't. But most guys who are competitors will probably we've seen Bobby Knight throw chairs at his players when games were out of hand. So I mean, there was no physical violence. He just shook the man and moved on. And then what happened? They won the game. He's kissing Kelce's kissing Taylor Swift. Andy Reid is all smiles with his wife. And the two embraced afterwards. Like neither one took it personal amongst each other. And I think even if they would have lost the game, there would be no bad blood between the two. So if there's no big deal from Andy Reid's side, we shouldn't think of it as a big deal. And again, it's not like we've seen Kelce exhibit this behavior before. It was just in the heat of the moment. We're down by 10 points type of thing. And when you're facing adversity, sometimes the emotions come out. The guy's a dog. He's a competitor. He just didn't want to lose, and he probably thought things were out of control at that point. Now, if he would have punched a man in the face or took his helmet off and mollywopped him,
I gotta cut you off.
Conversation.
I gotta cut you off. But yeah, I mean, you make some interesting points, and what's that?
I was just gonna say the Bobby Knight reference. Look how he's portrayed by the whole public because of the crazy antics that he's done.
That's fair. No, that's fair. And in general, we have tended to be consistent on this stuff. And I think, like with Kelce, again, my issue, my take on it, I talked about this yesterday in my show. My main take was the physical contact is what I have the biggest issue with. We've seen again, if Tom had shoved Josh McDaniels back in the day, that'd be different. If somebody you use the Latrell Sprewell example, prime example, that's I think choking is way different than that's whole. You got both your hands on the guy. That's a whole different.
He only touched. If you go back and look at it, he only touched him with one hand. I don't think he even used enough force to hurt him. Granted the age difference, but
sure.
Yeah, I don't think he had any intent to hurt him. It was just in the heat of a moment argument. Not even an argument, just because Andy Reid looked like he didn't answer back. He yelled at him.
But don't assault the guy. Don't push it, because
that's
the
issue.
If he fell over, Kansas City's done. I don't care how great Patrick Mahomes is. They would have lost that game because Andy Reid fell on his ass due to Kelce shoving him.
It would not have been a great.
I get the dog. I get the dog instinct, but still.
I definitely do agree. The area where I do agree with Alfred on is again, when you have a guy who's this competitive, eventually that's going to come out, and that's again, it's the physical assault that was kind of the issue with me. But in terms of again, the mess, and then we'll get to our obviously the point totals. As far as the message, that he was sending, he wasn't wrong. In terms of dude, because someone read his lips saying, "Get me the ball," and there was some choice language in there, obviously, and 8 catches for 92 yards later. So the point was taken by Reid, and props to Andy for having thick skin, understanding this guy's not again, he shouldn't have shoved me, but he's not getting in my face just for the fun of it. There's the factor of, listen, this guy, they
hugged it out after the game. Coaches and players don't always see eye to eye all the time. It's not a big deal. I'm pretty sure if they ask Andy Reid tomorrow, he's not thinking anything of it.
I'm curious to see as more comes out from the two sides to see what we get. But there could be only one winner. By the way, both y'all had great takes from opposite sides. That's what I like that more is when we get, I'm not telling everybody to go in the opposite direction, obviously, but like when we have two opposing views, both make great takes, it makes it a lot more like, okay, I'm going to go this way, I'm going to go this way. So the celebration music is dialed, and the winner for the 8 o'clock spot this week is Alfred Parsard Jr. Alfred wins once again on the 8 o'clock spot. Mr. Runner-Up, I'm sorry, my friend. Your run continues. Here we go, Alfred.
You hate me.
I'll get to you in a second, Tim. Alfred, your reaction.
I would just like to thank everybody who made this appearance and victory possible. Also, I believe I am now number 2 all time in points on the history of this program.
You're close.
And it feels good to be back on the winning side. I think this is my first win in months, so I'll be going to bed a happy man tonight.
And Alfred was a late ad before the show. He's like, "Hey, you got a spot available?" Like, yeah, if you got time, it's good. Come on. And Alfred put up a great performance, as did everybody else, by the way. Tim, your reaction.
You hate me. I get it. You just want to see me fail. You want to see me get all the way.
We're Red Sox fans, buddy.
As close as I can. And then you're like, I'm going to squash you like a bug every single time. I thought we were Red Sox fans. Yo, I know why, because you know I hate the Red Sox ownership. That's why. I got you, Bryson.
I don't like him either, Tim. I'm totally with you. We don't disagree on anything with the Red Sox. Me and you, man, we're lockstep. I'm telling you, you were that close. And I thought you made a great take. I just thought Alfred was a little better. That's all. I thought Alfred made a little bit better take. But in general, a great performance. I see Guido's disappointed at the bottom. We'll bring Guido and EJ back into this back into the room. Mike is pissed off right now. What's up, Mike?
I don't know, man. I was rooting for Tim so hard, man. This is like, listen, this is exactly how I felt about the Super Bowl. Okay, it's Alfred who's the big scary Chiefs who always win, and nobody else ever. Yeah, that's how I feel. And Tim is the lowly San Francisco 49ers or the lowly Detroit Lions who needs their spot in the spotlight. That's man, I'm disgruntled. I'm legitimately distraught.
EJ, thoughts?
Yeah, just quick thoughts about the Kelce thing.
Sure.
I really just hope he and Andy Reid can shake it off, that there's no bad blood. It won't be a cruel summer. And that he doesn't come out and say, I knew you were trouble in regards to Travis Kelce. But at the end of the day, I wanted to see Tim win too. Alfred's a good dude. But come on, let's get Tim a dub. Can we? Can we get Tim a dub? He's basically the Buffalo Bills now.
Put the hands on a coach, period. End of story.
I don't disagree with you there.
Done, ball game.
I agree. No, we don't disagree there. But in terms of the message, why he was doing it, that's kind of where I thought Alfred made the better case. Again, we're all in unison. You don't touch anybody like that. But no question about it. By the way, EJ, just a little bonus, a little 50-point bonus for the creative references. So EJ,
let's go.
50. It's 50. It's 50. It's not major. It's 50.
It's 50.
Whoa.
After the conversation.
Time in 8 o'clock spot history, bonus points have been given out. Are you kidding me right
that
now?
Is not true. I have given out bonus points before. We have to go back and check the tape. I have absolutely given out bonus points.
Oh
okay?
my
giving them out.
Goodness gracious.
This is Frozone talking right now. This is Frozone from back in August and September. This is that talking.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Truthfully, Mike, you should get a negative 50 for being late, anyways. So,
I'm on time. I was locked in by 8.
Close. You made it. You made it. So I'm not gonna penalize. 8:01. We're talking.
Listen, I'll just say this. Is if Tim were running this show, he would have benched me. That's what I'm gonna say.
There might be some truth to that.
Just don't push me, Mike. Just don't push me.
I swear to you, you're close, bro. You're close. You have to come back next week.
Tim, honestly, Valentine's tomorrow. Maybe get Bryson a gift, possibly a box of chocolates, something.
His gift is going to be on my show tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'll make sure he knows.
Listen,
There you go.
Boston sports love. Hell hath no fury. I'm in for a rude awakening on the Boston Sports Summit. Everybody tune in to Tim's show tomorrow night. By the way, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific on the Gryd Network. Shout out to everybody though. Fun show tonight. Super Bowl show. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to EJ. Shout out to Tim. Tim, your breakthrough is coming. I'm not gaslighting you, my friend. You
like seeing
close.
me in pain. I got you.
Yeah, I love it. Yes, I enjoy every second seeing it. Listen, if you're a Yankees fan, might be something to that. It might be. Yeah, exactly. And shout out to Alfred for winning the 8 o'clock spot this week on our Super Bowl edition. See y'all next week, 8 o'clock spot, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time on the Gryd Network. Next Tuesday night, again, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll see you then. Maybe some basketball, maybe some more football, Super Bowl talk. Very excited for that. But stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out.
God bless.
Peace.